Call this May 6th meeting to order. Sherburne County Board of Commissioners, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance on moment five. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Must be something special going on this morning. We've got a full house. Something big. I entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Danielowski, second by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're going to have county oath of office. Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. It is with great pleasure that we are going to take and conduct the oath of office for our new county attorney, Ms. Dawn Nyhus, and I will ask the judge and Dawn to come forward and take their place.
Good morning. Of course, there's going to be a few words before we do this. Judge Walter Kaminsky, I've been a judge here for 11 years, live in Elk River, former county attorney also, and this is my honor here today to do this. I know that Dawn's got a great staff, nice turnout here today, and she's going to be a fantastic Minister of Justice as the next Sherburne County attorney. So are you ready to do this?
Yes.
All right, raise your right hand, please. I, Dawn Nyhus,
I, Dawn Nyhus,
do solemnly swear
or
affirm
affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of County Attorney
the duties of the office of County Attorney
in the County of Sherburne,
in the County of Sherburne,
State of Minnesota,
to
to the best of my judgment and ability.
the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right.
Commissioners, you guys want to go off here to the side first?
So over just a little bit. I'll do those two first.
Yeah, why don't you back up though?
So good. And can we get one with Dawn's partner? No, please, Judge.
Oh, yep.
This side?
Mine too.
Okay, Commissioners, would you join everybody?
You say we knock out.
Stand on one leg.
There we go.
Then we could go just down to the judge. No, you stay. Sorry, Andy. Sorry, Andy. That's all right. All good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Skinny mode.
Yeah, here.
That's all right.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, now I must
Somebody again? Okay, now that the pomp and circumstance is out of the way, we'll move on to item number 1, county proclamations. Consider approval of proclamation declaring May 11th through the 17th as Police Week in Sherburne County. Commander Benzawaki.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This will be the National Police Week proclamation. To recognize National Police Week 2025 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office. Whereas nearly 50,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 13,000 injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including one member of the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office. Whereas the names of those dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas 345 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 148 officers killed in 2024. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 37th Annual Candlelight Vigil that will be held on May 13th, 2025. Whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flag should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners formally designates May 11th through the 17th, 2025 as Police Week in Sherburne County and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and the communities across the nation.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Danielowski, second by Commissioner Felber. Any discussion?
I just also wanted to say thank you. Without our law enforcement personnel doing the job and the very hard jobs that they do, I don't know where we'd be as a state or a country. So thank you very much for the willingness to step up and serve in that capacity.
Thank you.
I think it'd be difficult to overstate the amount of dedication it takes to do law enforcement in the current environment that we have nationally. So I just absolutely hats off to all the folks that are still out there willing to do the job.
Yeah, I think unequivocally, this whole board supports our law enforcement. I think we're always right behind you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I echo the same sentiments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Consider approval of proclamation declaring May 9th as Military Spouse Appreciation Day. Larry.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Hulse, did you want to say a few words first before I read? Okay. Before I read this, though, I do want to ask everybody in the room to imagine the following scenarios as you listen to this proclamation. So think of yourself as 20 years old, newly married, and you're uprooted and you move to Germany with your best friend and spouse. 1 month in, your spouse is suddenly deployed for over a year. You're now isolated and alone in a foreign country with very little communication with your spouse, but you have to hold it together. Or think about being married for 15 years and your spouse deploys to a combat zone, and you've got a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old at home. The furnace goes out. The teens who are very subject to the psychological impacts of separation begin lashing out at school, having problems, and you have to hold it all together. And yet, the few times you get to talk to your spouse on the phone, you don't want to bring anything up because you don't want them to worry about what's happening at home. And think about, you're in your 70s now. It was years ago that your spouse went to combat. But suddenly now the night terrors start, and they start having the problems associated with PTSD. So the commitment doesn't end when the military service ends. It's a lifelong sharing partnership that the military spouse and the service member engage in together. So just something to think about with the sacrifices that the military spouse makes through their relationship, unique relationship with the service member. Proclamation. Declaration of May 9th as Military Spouse Appreciation Day. Whereas spouses for generations have stood alongside and tirelessly supported the men and women of our armed forces who protect the freedom and security enjoyed by the citizens of the United States. And whereas time and time again, military spouses endure the selfless sacrifices brought by military service, separation from partners with little communication, solely managing the tumult and disruption thrust upon the household, and maintaining a constant vigilance of outward calm to allay the pernicious fear of mom or dad not returning. And whereas the military spouse is the anchor for the service member, the military spouse gives the service member the confidence to deploy, the reason to fight, and the motivation to return safely. Whereas the military spouse is the service member's protector, it is often the military spouse who detects the psychological and physical changes upon return and is the first voice to recommend treatment. It is also the military spouse who becomes the coach and caregiver, spanning a lifetime together. And whereas in April 1984, President Reagan recognized the importance of military spouses to the readiness and well-being of military members and established Military Spouse Appreciation Day, followed by Congress in 1999 officially including Military Spouse Appreciation Day as part of National Military Appreciation Month, and the Department of Defense standardizing the Friday before Mother's Day as Military Spouse Appreciation Day. Now, therefore, be it resolved, Sherburne County hereby proclaims May 9th, 2025 as Military Spouse Appreciation Day, a day dedicated to honoring the steadfast support and countless sacrifices made by the spouses of our armed forces personnel. Military spouses demonstrate remarkable resilience, strength, and commitment to both their families and the broader military community. Their dedication does not go unnoticed, and they are deeply valued.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Commissioner Hulse.
Thanks very much. I had hoped that my wife would be able to be here this morning, but she's doing what she always does, taking care of others. So I'll carry on anyway. About 34 years ago, a young ensign was on his way home from his first deployment to his new base in Hawaii. The weekend he got there, he met a young neonatal ICU transport nurse from Kapiolani Medical Center for Women and Children. We got married 8 months later. 4 months after that, I did my second deployment. Still barely newlyweds. Came home from that deployment, started to get to know each other a little bit again. And then about 18 months later, just a little under, our first daughter was born. I was also transitioned to a new base in San Antonio. Moved her and my newborn daughter to San Antonio, got to stay with them about 3 days, and then with an empty house because our PCS, our furniture hadn't arrived yet, with a new baby, I deployed on my third deployment. Those days, they didn't have, the internet was still a new thing. The cell phones were still a new thing, and if you had one, they were about this big and cost $5.99 a minute in order to talk domestically, much less internationally. What you did have was something called an out-of-on line. The out-of-on line was a dedicated military phone line, primarily used for official business, but we were allowed 5 minutes once a week to call home. So It's an incredible job that the military spouse does. It's, in my view, the hardest job on the planet. And very few marriages survive one deployment, much less multiple. But at the end of this month, that little baby celebrates her 30th birthday. And my wife and I celebrate our 32nd wedding anniversary. So with that, I enthusiastically make the motion to approve this, proclamation, and I dedicate this motion to my wife.
I will second that.
We have an enthusiastic motion by Commissioner Hulls and a second by Commissioner Danielowski.
Just as enthusiastically.
Is there any further discussion?
Can't think of anything that tops that,
That tops that.
or even comes close. It just,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Larry. Do you want me to call for a motion to open the public hearing, Bruce, first? Or do you want to make comments?
Yeah, if you want to open first, then I can give an
Need a
introduction.
motion to open the public hearing?
so moved.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Felber, second by Commissioner Schubacher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Turn it over to Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a little bit, and Keisha, if you want to scroll down to the background justification as well, so whoops, you went too far there, so that's good. Just so that the community can read as well. We have 3 items that are all related to the same property on today's agenda. 2 were tabled about 2 months ago, which are going to come later. But on today's agenda first is the request for a public hearing for a liquor license application, followed then by the board consideration of the same. So I just wanted to give some background on that, and you can see it on the screen as well. So approximately a year ago in 2023, an application was made for a liquor license by the applicant. It was a condition of the conditional use permit, which was recommended for approval by staff, recommended approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and ultimately approved by the board unanimously. That condition required that they get a liquor license. The public hearing, because it is a new liquor license and required under statute, was also held. However, following that public hearing, the state of Minnesota, specifically the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Alcohol Gambling Enforcement, they made a determination that the type of license that they needed was called a farm wine license. And so the Department of Public Safety then stayed or didn't process the rest of the application. The county auditor treasurer at the time opined that given that the state of Minnesota said we're not going to process a state liquor license, we also stayed completion of the application for the local liquor license. So basically the understanding was at the time that because it was limited to farm wine, it wasn't needed. Fast forward to this year, the applicant has come in and has requested 2 considerations later on the agenda. One is for an interim use permit to conduct special events. That is a discretionary decision the board will discuss in a minute or in a few minutes. And then the second is modifications to the existing conditional use permit. Again, separate actions. However, in reviewing all of the materials as part of that, the county attorney and now county auditors, because this is not a public hearing on the IUP, this is not a public hearing on the changes to the existing conditional use permit. It is a public hearing only on the application for a liquor license. And again, the state of Minnesota and the county hold the applicant harmless for the fact that it was not completed a year ago. That was not the applicant's determination. The applicant did apply. It was just stayed or not processed on both of those fronts. I'll answer any questions you have as far as a staff report prior to you seeking public comment on the liquor license.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
thank you. Is it my understanding too that a liquor license approval would also allow law enforcement to be able to handle any issues that might arise, whereas now under the previous, they would not have been able to?
That is one of the motivations for completing this, in addition to the fact that the CUP condition 4 did say that they had to present the license, which they couldn't do because it wasn't granted, so.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just a cleanup of an oversight from the original CUP would be basically in layman's terms, put it that way?
I wouldn't call it an oversight. I think it was a administrative determination at the state level and the county level that the type of business that was allowed under the CUP does not require a full liquor license at the state level. The result is the state said, we don't need to issue a full license, and the county attorney, audit treasurer at the time said, then we're satisfied.
All right.
I think now, given that the context and given the concerns about enforcement, that we felt it is necessary for the applicant, they have completed the application, they've paid the fee, and the state now understands that this is a requirement at the local level, not the state level. Again, it does not change, however, the original CUP.
Any other questions, comments? Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? Please go to the podium, state your name and address.
Good morning. My name is Tim Sockery. I live at 15940 41st Street. I've lived there for 20 years, now directly across from the street and just east of the bar. I understand I am not permitted to discuss the original CUP, the proposed amendment to the CUP, or the proposed for the IUP. I also understand the enforcement issue, which is a good thing. However, the public hearing presents a perfect opportunity to explain the current application should be denied. First, it's worth noting that San Diego Township approved the application without opposition. In our neighborhood, families value their time and understand that two of the three township board members are patrons of the bar. Knowing that likely outcome, we did not waste our time attending that meeting. Instead, we chose to be heard here at the public hearing that truly matters. The business requires 2 licenses to operate, a farm winery license and the county liquor license, which they're applying for today. Without both, it cannot legally function. Repeating what the administrator said, according to the state statute regarding public hearings, all hearing, the county board shall consider testimony, exhibits presented by the interested parties, may base its decision or issue or deny a license upon the nature of business to be conducted as its impact upon the municipality, the character reputation of the applicant, and the propriety of the location. So why would you approve an application that could allow patrons to drink alcohol in a residential neighborhood, possibly on Fridays in June and September while school is in session, and throughout summer when many students in the area attend extended school year, summer school? What happens if the patrons start drinking at noon and drive on the same roads where school buses are dropping off children at shared stops? This is a peaceful, family-oriented neighborhood. Approving this application would risk disruption and the harmony and divide the community. If this application is approved and the bar is allowed to operate, has the county commissioners considered the increase of traffic on 41st Street, a dead-end road that already has poor condition? Approving the application could be equivalent to hosting a graduation party for maybe 6 days a month all summer long. What a brilliant way to eliminate the liability Sherburne County has with this operation. Simply deny the application. This application is part of a CUP process. It has been mentioned that the business does not meet the CUP criteria. Sherburne County should evaluate this before voting on a liquor license. If the license is granted, who will be responsible for enforcing potential violations? And finally, I ask each of you to consider this. How would you vote if this bar was located next to your own home? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Good morning. My name is Pam Price, and I live at 15597 41st Street in Becker, and we've lived there for 26 years. My husband and I moved here from Minneapolis to get away from the hustle and the bustle. We wanted the peace and the quiet. Up until the past couple of years, this has happened, but it's not happening anymore. It's no longer a peaceful, neighborly, residential area. I have attended every Sherburne County meeting regarding this bar to voice my concerns about a bar being allowed in a residential neighborhood. I'm here again today wondering why a business is allowed in our residential neighborhood. When my grandchildren come to visit, I do not take them for walks. I do not allow them to ride their bikes for fear that there may be drivers who are either intoxicated or not paying attention to their driving. Why should I have to worry about this in a residential neighborhood? How would you feel if the bar took up business in your neighborhood? How would you like it if a business in your neighborhood devalued your home resale value? If this license is approved, I feel you are opening a can of worms, meaning what would stop others in our neighborhood from asking for a license to run a business? They would deserve the same considerations that you're giving the Zimmermans. I feel you are setting up a bad precedence for the future of our neighborhood. I cannot stress to you enough that this is a residential neighborhood, not a residential/business zone. People moved here for peace and quiet. This bar has taken away these things from our neighborhood. Who is going to make sure that the Zimmermans are following all the regulations that they agree to? Has anyone come out or anyone will come out to check how the wine is being made? If this meeting were held in the evening, more neighbors would have been here opposing this license, but cannot attend now because they have jobs. The people who have spoken in favor of this bar in the past either don't live in our neighborhood or are neighbors who have worked at the bar or sell items at their sip and shop. When you vote, please imagine this in your neighborhood. Would you vote to allow this where you live with your children, your grandchildren, and your pets? Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Hi, my name is Carol Zimmerman, and I am a special education teacher first, and I'm the owner of Boulder Creek Wine Bar. And I want to apologize, I thought this was a closed meeting, so I didn't really prepare anything, but I just wanted to share that we have been open. I don't think people in the neighborhood have really noticed the traffic change because it is very subtle. The biggest population of our place is like my age. We're 60 years old, is the main population of what we have. We have approval of everybody in the north side, the south side, the east side, and the west side of where we live. And they have been there because they know it's a quiet, peaceful place. I want to just give a quick little story about the kind of place I have. So there was 3 ladies who walked in, and there was an older lady, a lady about my age, and a younger lady. And they had come a couple times, and I went and talked to them, and I said, you guys, it's so sweet that it looks like generational. And they said they are. The grandmother was from Germany, and she spoke only German. And the daughter which was closer to my age, was around here. She spoke both German and English. And then the daughter was younger and could understand a little German, but not a lot. The third time they came at the end, the older lady, who was 95, said, she said in her very German accent, I learned English just for you. She said, I bring my daughter here, and I bring my granddaughter here, and 3 times, and it has been such a beautiful experience for us to just sit here and enjoy nature and enjoy each other. And I can't wait to come back next summer and enjoy your beautiful place. I had tears in my eyes, and I thought that was such a testimony of the kind of population we have. It's called Boulder Creek Wine Bar because my husband and I named that 10 years ago when we built our indoor bar in our basement. But it's a winery, so people aren't going there to get drunk and rip up the neighborhoods. We have a large population of Russians in our neighborhood who do drive down the road recklessly, and there has been a lot of police report. So I just want one more thing. When I was at the Santiago Township Board, the sheriff was there, and the board asked if there were any police calls about our place, and there were 0 police calls about our place. So as far as the county coming out and doing the checks for the liquor license, compliance checks, I have compliance checks with the Department of Health, the TTB, the Department of Agriculture, both production and retail, as well as the Department of Gambling and Alcohol. So I have people coming out all the time, checking compliance on me making the wine and serving. So yes, I am getting observed by many entities, federally, state, and with a liquor license, it will be locally as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Hi, Tim Price, 15597 41st Street. My wife and I, she had already mentioned, we've been in the neighborhood since it was first formed. I think we were the fourth house to build in that neighborhood. And so we've seen how that has evolved. I don't know how many of the commissioners have actually driven through our neighborhood and visited that neighborhood. In my mind, that, and I guess I'm speaking to the appropriateness of this license to grant the CUP. I consider our neighborhood kind of unique for Sherburne County. If you think back to the late 90s, early 2000s, when housing developments were popping up everywhere, you know, the vast majority of them were all farmland, open land. And if you've seen and you come into our neighborhood, it is what I would classify as extremely heavily wooded. And if it isn't wooded, it's wetland. It is not, in my idea, what I would consider farmland. Even though we are zoned agricultural and residential, one unit on all of our, every house in that, in the development, there's, I would guess there isn't more than 2 acres of tillable land in the entire development. Back when, a little backstory, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but back when this development was first started, the gentleman that developed it bought the land from, I don't remember if it was his grandfather or an uncle. It was a farm way back when. And as you come into the development, you'll see all these red pines. And he told me how, as a kid, he helped his relatives plant all those pines. And so when it came time to sell the property, develop the property, we all had the original purchasers during our closing. We had to sign an agreement that said, once a certain percentage of the properties were sold, we were supposed to form a HOA. You were not allowed to have horses, cattle, anything on the land. You couldn't have pole barns on the property. It was set up as a very residential, quiet neighborhood. You just, you know, that was the intent. In fact, it took us almost a month to get the developer to agree to sell us our property, because we're at the very end of the street. The west end of my property butts up against Jeff Poppensfuss and his father's land. So it's a mile from County 11 to there. And when we moved into there, the idea was it was going to be a residential neighborhood, no other development coming in. And to me, it speaks to the appropriateness of everybody, most of the neighbors I've talked with, that the reason they came into that neighborhood is the fact that they loved the peace and quiet of the neighborhood. When we first, maybe 10 years, most of the neighbors that were originally there, you knew who lived in the neighborhood. You knew their cars. When you saw a strange car come into the neighborhood, everybody was like, oh, who's that? Who's that? You know, somebody casing the neighborhood. Because most of the houses you can't even see from the street. And so everybody was on the lookout for each other. Early on, probably the first 5-10 years, I could take my dogs and walk down the middle of the street, and there's days I never even saw a single car. Well, now as the neighborhood's grown older, the families have gotten older, the kids, the teenagers have started to drive, yes. There's more traffic, and the kids, being kids, sometimes are not exactly the safest drivers. But then we also get a lot of outside the neighborhood traffic, which has drawn away, in my mind, has drawn away from the peace and quiet that this neighborhood was originally developed to do, is to give people a place. You can go in in the evening. My wife and I, when we first moved there, we were still working in Minneapolis. And you'd come home at night and, you know, people say, why do you drive so far? Well, it's like going to the lake every night. You know, you were out in the country, you didn't worry about anything. It was so quiet, the only noise that you heard were the frogs in the summer. And the appropriateness of granting a liquor license to operate a bar in this neighborhood, in my mind, is just not appropriate. We were, you know, I told neighbors, and I heard one of my other neighbors said the same thing. They want to die and be buried out there because we don't want to leave. We love that neighborhood so much. But by putting this into the neighborhood, I think it's destroying that neighborhood. We love the fact that it's a tight-knit, it was extremely tight-knit. Now as things have evolved, there's still, I think there's still 10 or 12 families that are original to that neighborhood. A lot of the other neighbors are maybe second owners of property in the neighborhood. And it's been a tight-knit group, but by introducing a business such as this into that neighborhood, it's just going to destroy the fabric of a quiet, peaceful neighborhood, which, again, I think is unique for Sherburne County to have that kind of a neighborhood compared to so many of the other developments that are just open farmland. And like everybody has stated so far, I would urge you to consider, would you want a bar next to your house? I don't know where any of you guys live, but would you want that in your neighborhood with the traffic that comes along with it? Granted, it may not be much, but Tim has documented many times people pulling into his driveway. We get people coming down to the end of the cul-de-sac, flipping around. I don't know if they're lost or whatever, but my plea is you look at the appropriateness of a liquor license in business such as that in our quiet rural neighborhood, which I believe Sherburne County, it came up here a while ago, and I know Santiago it was that way. They are trying to retain the rural nature of the townships and the county, because I think there was concern with all the solar farms going in and destroying that rural setting in Sherburne County by having, you know, thousands of acres of solar panels throughout the county. You know, I don't know, I don't care to live next to a solar farm. You know, that's not what I originally bought this land for. Was we enjoy the peace and quiet, watching all the animals come and go. So I would just, I guess, plead with you to consider the appropriateness of a liquor license in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Commissioners, Tony
An
Zimmerman,
address.
co-owner of Boulder Creek Wine Bar. I was 15913 41st Street. I was one of the originals also to build out there. I think I was house number 6, so I am out there just as long as some of these other people have been there. Have you ever had a place in your life where you sit there and you imagine the serenity, the peacefulness, the togetherness, like some of the terms that we've heard here today, this morning? These are all things that have been brought to us and terms that have been said time and time again to us. I think my wife touched on it, Carol. Our average age of person that come out there is in their 60s. This is not a teenage or 21, 22-year-old hangout. You do get an occasional 20-year-old, but it is, and there's plenty in the 80s. So the reckless driving, the drinking that, you know, is going to be out of control, and drunk driving. It's in the last couple of years, we just haven't seen it, you know, And, you know, we're gonna do the sentence, or we're gonna do the serve safe. We're gonna try everything in our power, like we have, to conduct this business, this nice little wine bar, this quaint setting, as we have. I mean, we're not here to drive a wedge or be, you know, bipartisan. We want to be partisan with our neighbors. We do. And I just truly think that, you know, with the masses of the people that come are of the age of responsibility and fortitude. And it's really, it's not a bar. It's a little tiny winery where you can grab a glass of wine and sit and talk, reach out to one another. It's not somewhere where you're going to get shots. It's not somewhere where you're going to get hard alcohol. It's not somewhere where you're going to get Coors Light, Miller Lite. That's not it. So, thank you all for your consideration.
Good morning. My name is Peter Coop, and I live at 15850 41st Street. And we are kind of neighbors to some people here. And we live
Could you
already
slide the mic
26
down?
years.
I can't hear you. There you go. Thank you, sir.
We live in this house. We built it and live there for 26 years already. And we had 41 grandkids born in that time. So, and most of them are on the same street. And yeah, the grandkids, they grew up and they start getting too excited sometimes, but you can talk to them and they understand what that they shouldn't do, like using their four-wheelers too loud on the streets there. Sometimes people, they don't like it, me too. And we moved out there in the woods just because to stay away from the noise, from the bad drivers. And we've seen some problems there in 26 years, you know. So there was so many that ended up in the ditches there, and we know that, all that stuff. And the kids, when they, if I talk to my grandkids, they understand. They don't make that noise then. Even Tim, he lives in a cul-de-sac there. He talks to them too. They understand. They change their mind. But me, we live there just because we want a quiet place. I used to work close to my work, just less than 10 minutes to work. And we moved, and I was driving 36 minutes. And I would say I better would go there than live in the city. And I was driving for 16 years. And just because it's a nice, good place. And all these 26 years, we've seen different people. We've seen people come with a rifle to my door. Why? He would say, "Oh, your kids, this, and this, and this." I said, "They come in. They're not even home. Why do you saying that they come to your house? They're not even home, you know." And they didn't live there long, just 11 months, I think, and that's it. But usually the people around there never had a fight or something. Yeah, we know our neighbors. And they're nice. We talk to them, nice neighbors. But we are here 35 years. in the United States. You probably can understand that my language is not that good, but I learned it in 35 years. I learned it, but it's my third language. My first language was Plattdeutsch. It's a German dialect kind of, and then Russian, and now English. And we're happy that we brought our kids here from the country, from the USSR. That the USSR, why we left the country? Because the communists, they said, we don't need you. We cannot build the communism in our country and just leave the country. We said, okay, bye. United States said, come over here. We are a Christian country. No alcoholics, no nothing. Everything's fine. Churches everywhere, and we came over here. And when we came over here, here people in the United States, they ask you, oh, you came from Russia? Yeah. Oh, you drink vodka, right? No, you drink vodka. But everybody in Russia should drink vodka. Yeah, they drink a lot. And this is what we grew up with around there. And they kicked us out kind of in the country, and so we are here now. And to be happy, we moved there just so to be, in a quiet place, quiet, just peaceful. Yeah, sometimes the kids, they make noise. They're kids. They're kids. You have to teach them. You have to teach them, and they should learn how to stay around, and be nice to other people, to your neighbors and stuff. That's how it is. That's how now they grew up. We have in our grandkids, there's a few engineers. There's 2 from one house already, engineers. They are working already. And there's a couple more engineers, and more will become next year maybe. And so, but that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say, they grew up. They're not making that noise it was before, and they learn it. And now they even tell the little ones that, you should be nice. And to have a spot that a bar kind of in our neighborhood, it's if somebody goes, speeding, oh, I'm sorry. If somebody's speeding there, they sometimes, the kids, the teenagers, they want to go a little bit because there's empty streets, empty dead end, And when the person is drinking, they don't need much. They don't need much. I know that. I grew up with alcoholics. I grew up with so many people that, they just lived on that, and I know how it works, how they started, and they don't need much. They didn't need it. And if it's, they drink vodka. No, first they start drinking vodka, but then they drink only wine. 1 cup of wine, and they're happy, all excited, So that's why I don't like it. On our street, there's a Ricky, I remember that kid. He grew up with our kids. And he's in jail now for, 20 years probably. Why? Because from drinking. And here he ran into a car, killed a woman, pregnant, and now I think he's got 25 years or something. For what? Just from drinking. And that's it. That's it. That's why we moved there, and we wanted we want to stay there. We want to have a nice, when we hear the cops, the sirens, we say, oh, what happened? What happened? Because there's nothing there around, you know? It's very nice. That's why I would say we want to stay there. And we want our grandkids, even 4 of them already, we have 4 grandkids already. And we came with 9 kids here, and now there's 67 of us in these 35 years that we live in the United States. And we want them to grow up and not playing with wines and beers, what usually the teenagers like. And they grow up and they go to the colleges and stuff, and it's good. It's good. And pretty soon our great grandkids will go to colleges. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Hello, my name is Adina Coop, and I live at 16095 41st Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of my father, Andre Coop. He owns 10 acres of land within a quarter mile of this bar. He's been a landowner on the street for 25 years, and I've lived here for all the years that he's owned that land. Imagine if I had a desire to have a bar, and on my 10 acres of land, I came before you and asked if I could establish a bar in direct competition to the Zimmermans just a couple doors down within a quarter mile of their business. I appreciate all law enforcement personnel, and when complaints are filed, the city's already strained police resources are further stretched to address them. Is Sherburne County prepared and able to provide additional patrol for our neighborhood when neighbors voice concerns about the bar? If this application is approved, addressing problems at the bar will likely be reactive rather than proactive. Instead, we have an opportunity right now to take preventative action, ensuring the police force operates efficiently without unnecessary strain on further resources. Alternatively, you could choose to avoid these issues entirely. This would ensure that taxpayer dollars earned through hard work are not wasted. It was mentioned before that place that we can think of for our serenity and peace. Like, what is that place that Zimmerman's mentioned just earlier? And for me, when I think of serenity and peace and I just close my eyes, that first thought that comes to my mind is my church. And that feeling that I have sitting in my church and the feeling I have sitting on the back porch at my house, on my quiet land. And so, yes, we did not voice our concerns because we are religious, as stated before. We do go to church on Sundays. We are regular country folk. And we strive to live in peace with all of our neighbors. And so we've been really patient, and we don't want any hostility or division in the neighborhood. And so we have kept our concerns to ourselves, and we've been patient. The topic of child safety is also important. For instance, imagine that this is approved. Have you considered the potential liability Sherburne County could face if tragically a person, or God forbid a child, is harmed by a disoriented or intoxicated driver? Every person speaking in opposition to this bar today has been a long-time resident of 41st Street. Some of us for more than 20 years. I'm only a little over 20 years. I'm speaking on behalf of a 50-year-old father. So my father has spent decades, and all of us here have spent decades working hard to achieve that American dream. And this neighborhood has played an important role in making that dream a reality. Our homes and land are more than just property. They hold the stories of how our kids grew up and the sacrifices we've made to build our futures. We worked tirelessly at our jobs, saved money, and searched for the perfect place to settle down. When we finally found this beautiful land on 41st Street, we built our dream homes, paid taxes for over 20 years, and helped establish a peaceful neighborhood where our families could thrive and we could help our neighbors if emergencies came up. Now, as we grow older, we embrace our retirement age and our retirement years. Several of the individuals that spoke up, they're in retirement or nearing retirement. We are enjoying the peace. Now as we grow older, we embrace our retirement years, enjoying the peace we've earned after decades of hard work. We cherish the free time we finally have by welcoming our children and grandchildren into this peaceful environment we've created in the neighborhood. 41st Street is more than just a neighborhood. It's the fulfillment of lifelong dreams. We must protect our dream and our home. For the good of our neighborhood, imagine yourself in our position. You worked tirelessly for years to build a peaceful home in the countryside, expecting a quiet retirement. But now, weekend traffic, loud car horns, and reckless drivers disrupt the harmony, disturbing the once special neighborhood. Granting this request wouldn't just affect one family, it would threaten the dreams of lifelong residents, including my grandparents, the Socrates, and many others who've built their lives here. This neighborhood represents sacrifice, hard work, and the fulfillment of the American dream. Please don't take that away from us. A bar is not essential in a residential neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue?
My name is Elena Roscoe. I've lived on 16345 41st Street, Becker, Minnesota for 26 years. Me and my husband originally moved there, just the two of us. And now we have 11 children, 2 of them are engineers, 3 more in college. And we've moved there for the same reason, for peace and quiet. But now that we are experiencing more vehicle traffic, our kids we still have kids in younger grades, high school, middle school, elementary school. They do have shared bus stops. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have walkways. They have to walk to a shared school bus stop. In the summertime, when they don't have school, they ride their bikes, 4-wheelers, and yes, they did take their 4-wheeler exam and safety license, so they do know how to operate on a roadway safely. Ditches are for 4-wheelers from October to April, and April to October, ditches are off limits, so they have to ride on the street unless it's a county road, which they're not allowed to go on. So they know that there's safety driving on the streets if they're operating 4-wheelers. But my concern is for other kids. There's a lot of kids in the neighborhood that go walking, riding bikes, roller skating, scootering. With a lot more traffic, they're not allowed to do that safely. We also have adults walking with their strollers or with their kids. If there's more traffic that has disoriented drivers that we've seen, we're not allowed to do that safely. That's why we're asking the commission to consider this for the safety of our neighbors and our children, to not grant this license. We also have a lot of potholes on the street, and more traffic will create more damage to the road that's already has potholes and cracks and probably needs to be repaved. And there's bars around within a few miles. If anybody wants to go to a bar, they can. But we would prefer to have our street left peacefully like it was for the 25 years that we've been there. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue? Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue? Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Danielowski, second by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor? Aye. Public hearing's closed. Moving on. Number 2, consider approval of the Boulder Creek Wine Bar and Liquor License. Lorraine Rupp.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have before you the motion to approve or deny the liquor license, seasonal liquor license for Boulder Creek Wine Bar. This license would run from May 22nd, 2025 to August 18th of 2025, which would then put Boulder Creek on our normal rotation for our liquor license. So this will be coming again in front of you probably in the July meeting for renewal. This is for an off-sale, on-sale, and Sunday liquor license.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Danielowski.
This liquor license then for the seasonal off-sale, on-sale, and Sunday liquor license application, currently it's just operating as a winery. Does approving this liquor license open up anything for their ability to do more?
It does not. The license on its own would do that, but because of the conditional use permit, only allows the wine that she actually processes and manufactures on her location. So it is the combination of the two that will narrow her scope, that she can only serve her wine, and allow us to do all the compliance checks that the county needs to do to make sure she's in compliance.
Again, I'm just thinking outside the box, so in case they wanted to expand the operation to produce like maybe a form of alcohol or something of that nature, they would have to come back and have that
That
all-
would change the CUP.
All right, thank you.
Thoughts, questions? I have one. They have an original CUP that's right now, is one of the conditions that they have to have this liquor license to continue operating? Or is it, how's that work into this? Denial or approval of this?
Well, yeah, and again, that's a kind of confusing area that we have to be very intentional about. The business is authorized as a conditional use. So a farm winery is an authorized business as a condition. However, in order to operate it, you also need a liquor license. So the liquor license is really subrogated to the CUP. So the CUP allows the business to happen on that site. And then we say, and you also have to be able to get a liquor license. So it's akin to somebody wants to be an Uber driver, and let's say they have to get permission to be an Uber driver. The condition is also that, okay, you can be an Uber driver, but you need to get a driver's license. The driver's license conditions are separate from the decision to be an Uber driver. Can you pass the driver's test? That's why the liquor license conditions are separate from the CUP. If the board is inclined to not want the business there, and the reasoning is not limited to the liquor license application, then the normal process would be to consider revocation of the CUP. In other words, if you kill the business by saying, don't give them a liquor license, you have to have a rational basis to deny a liquor license. So think about it as though somebody wanted to open a new bar, or let's just say somebody's going to take over a bar in a town. They can apply for a liquor license. They're either going to get it or not, based upon their history, some other things that go into a liquor license application. The decision on whether or not there's a bar there has already been determined. It's been approved, it's zoned appropriately, it's functioning. It's just that it's a new application for a liquor license. So that's what we have here. We have a business that's been approved to be at this location to do these functions. But they also need to get a liquor license to make sure they can hold a liquor license. If they sell it, the CUP exists, the new owners would also have to get a liquor license. It's the conditions of the liquor license that are up for discussion today, not the conditions of the business.
Mr. Chair, this is really a challenging one because most people, when you move into a neighborhood, you're not assuming, I mean, if I drive into a neighborhood and I see there's a huge amount of land that is being farmed, I know I'm moving into a farm area, but I'm also going to be resident of the fact that that could potentially sell and become a housing development. And so there are changes that happen. I don't know, I struggle to think that there would be a liquor license granted in a residential neighborhood. That would totally come out of left field in my thought process. This is a tough one.
Well, Mr. Chair, in light of the fact that this board, minus one, four of us approved this last year as a CUP, I think at this point in time, the prudent thing to do is to finish that work by approving this liquor license at this point, and we can address the greater concerns literally later in this meeting, so that we can move on. The liquor license itself is, as has been explained and was in our packet, is part of what we did last year. This is finishing off the work we did last year. Any revisions or changes or anything we want to do with that conditional use permit is a separate issue.
And just the initial application from the work that I've done researching it, the public hearing for that had no one speaking at it, and the application for the liquor license was completely through the county board unanimous approval. It was at the state level that it was determined that it was not necessary and that it was stopped at that process.
Exactly. So at this point, I would move that we approve this liquor license.
Commissioner Holmes? You're in deep thought.
We would need a second, though, to continue discussion. So since there's a motion on the floor.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Schubacher seconds. Further discussion?
Can I go? So for the public that went for 4-1 on the comment, it's an ongoing discussion between us. It wasn't a bad thing. It was funny for that, just the 4-1. I did go out to the property. I did tour it to get caught back up in the conversation. I did go out there, and I went through the whole neighborhood. I felt very welcomed when I came into the neighborhood I felt welcomed when I came into the neighborhood. It's a very nice neighborhood that these folks live in, and it's a very nice area. I second the motion based on the fact that, there isn't police calls. The township approved it, pushed it back to us to do the heavy work or the heavy lifting, which is what we're working on trying to do now. And it comes down to, later in a topic, I'll stay on topic for the best I can, but, if somebody wanted to have horses here, in this kind of neighborhood, they could have horses and they could have an equestrian process, and they could invite people in, and people would come in with big heavy trailers and they would do things. This is a different kind of a business, but it's the same nature of somebody doing business in a neighborhood. And here we're going to be able to collect commercial tax on the portion of this that runs inside of that, not on the residential home, but on the part that these folks use. We're going to collect more property taxes. And so those are the reasons that I made a motion to second it for further discussion, is for those facts that we went there. And I did go to the property. I went out to the neighborhood and drove through during the day. And it does have the feeling where I live. We always make jokes about, I live on Mayberry Street, right? It's the Mayberry Street where we know everybody comes in. And it felt the same way in their neighborhood. Unfortunately, where I live, there's a lot of people that crush Coors Lights and Busch Light cans on the weekends as their weekend warriors on the lakes that come out. So I live on a lake, and so I see the difference in the traffic and the process of the young teenage drinkers. And some nights you have to close your windows, right? Because Some of us live on the lake and have that same experience. You're like, oh, it was a really nice night. I was gonna leave my windows open, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna turn the air conditioning on because I want to sleep in quietness and I don't want to participate in the neighbor's party. So I do take all of that into consideration when I make that second in that process. But that's all I had. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time, and for the group, he was just kidding. I'm here.
Commissioner Hulse.
I know.
Well, I just want to make sure we're properly separating issues. So this is separate from the issue of a CUP or an IUP or anything along those lines. This is specific to the liquor license itself. My question is what are the grounds for denying a liquor license? What drives? Because that's different than denying a CUP or an IUP. So I'm trying to understand that differentiation.
So referring back to the statute that Administrator Messelt was referring to, and I think the auditor had also indicated in the RBA, 340A.405 talks about after the hearing, right, that the county board shall consider testimony and exhibits presented by interested parties and may base its decision to issue or deny a license upon the nature of the business to be conducted and its impact upon any municipality, the character and reputation of the applicant, and the propriety of the location. Additionally, there are general eligibility requirements under Minnesota Statute 340A.402 that essentially talk about disqualifiers, but I think what the board is interested in or the commissioner is interested in is the language that I referenced there earlier. And so it would be consideration of those factors, to what extent you're articulating grounds that meet those factors for either issuance or denial. To what extent, even though this is a separate issue, whether or not the board believes that tailoring certain things may address some of those issues as well.
And from a legal standpoint, because the previous CUP was approved without opposition, is there an issue with essentially reversing that decision because the CUP was approved, but then coming back later and denying the liquor license for essentially the same reason?
Well, and I think the last piece is what I would focus on is whether there is a similar reason or a dissimilar reason that's before the commissioners now in making its decision. You have the record before you. That record arguably has grown since the initial consideration or the initial hearing. If you believe it has and you've received additional information, you would need to articulate what that information is, how it factors into your decision-making, how it speaks to the grounds under the statute. So if there is an inability or a lack of certainty within the record to support that, then that would be the other thing for the commissioners to take a look at. So.
And would I be correct in stating that we cannot consider concerns over the CUP in determining whether or not to approve the liquor license itself? Those have to be taken as two separate issues. Would I be correct in that?
I think that's correct. I think that you can and you do have before you in the record facts that speak to what you'd have to look at under 348.405. And so you've had a public hearing today. There was a prior record as to the previous public hearing. So you can take all of those things into consideration. It's really going to come down to your decision-making and what and how you articulate from the record what it is that you draw on to make that decision. I do believe that, as Administrator Messelt pointed out, there will be, of course, considerations on your other actions that are before you today, based on what your decision is on this license.
I guess my challenge is, from the board's perspective, I lived in Florida for a while, and in Florida, you would have a bar in a neighborhood, and it was a zoning problem, right? The challenge that I see here is that, you know, if I'm in a neighborhood and I you know, in theory, if I'm in a neighborhood and I want to apply for a liquor license, I can. But there would also have to be some sort of, you know, zoning requirements, such as an accompanying CUP or IUP, something along those lines. Normally, those happen in order. This is an administrative issue because of the timing with the state, in that the CUP already exists. So my challenge here is that what circumstances have changed, which doesn't mean that future considerations of a theoretical future CUP cannot be taken into consideration, but I'm challenged. I'm just challenged with.
I think the way that might help you is that, according to the state of Minnesota, the liquor license was issued with the CUP. They opined that they had the proper license. This is really just simply about the local requirement in our CUP. We could, you know, you could just remove condition number 4 of the original CUP. It's just in there because we assume that if there's going to be a farm winery, they should have a liquor license. You follow me? So the business has been operating under a state-approved function, I'll call it. We're just now saying for local enforcement and that, we want to make sure that we have all ability to do this. So if you say what's changed over the year, what we're asking you to focus on here is what has changed related to the liquor license.
So let me ask it this way then. What is the outcome? So if we deny the liquor license, they still have the state liquor license, correct?
They would still have the state liquor license. We would not have the ability to enforce our local ordinance.
And under the state liquor license, they could continue to operate, even if we didn't have a local liquor license, correct?
Yes.
Theoretically, although again, given if you deny it, we are probably going to ask you then to reconsider the condition of the CUP.
Those are separate issues, though.
I understand, but one will trigger the other. In other words, if the board...
I get it, but
okay.
But my issue is that if we deny the liquor license because they have a state liquor license, they can continue to operate, but we can't enforce.
Correct.
If we approve the liquor license, they still continue to operate, but we can enforce.
Correct. And all of the CUP conditions you approved last year still apply. Restricting time, place, manner, number of visitors, all of that is still there. If there are issues with that functionality, then we need to address them as violations of the CUP.
Right.
We are not considering the liquor license a violation of the CUP, again, because it was determined that that was really a state and then a local determination to not process the application last year in a timely manner. That is not something we hold against the applicant.
Commissioner, to the extent that the discussion today appears to be highlighting the circumstances about enforcement and about the ability for the county to enforce and what that means, should the commissioners wish to articulate that as a reason, either that it's a consideration that wasn't perhaps articulated before or wasn't given the weight that you wish to give it today, that may be something you may wish to discuss in terms of any thoughts about what the record is now before you and how you wish to proceed, and whether or not you wish to proceed in
Like I said,
some of that thought process to your earlier question. I'm sorry.
So, you know,
Let me cut you off.
As an example of, what could change between a renewal of a license and decision, let's say the license holder has multiple violations of selling to minors, has operating hour violations where they don't stay within their limitations. Maybe they have a personal conviction. That becomes part of that character of the license holder. If those things were here, it'd be a different conversation. Then you'd say, should we renew this liquor license or not? Are they a responsible business owner to hold a liquor license? So those things could have changed. What you heard today, you have to evaluate, does that affect the ability of this business owner to hold a liquor license?
So,
And then just to be clear, the public hearing was specific to the liquor license, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Okay,
I
thank
believe
you.
so. That was before my time, but I
Yeah,
believe so.
no, it's correct.
No, the public hearing today
Public hearing today is only on the liquor
was
license.
specific
Yes.
to the liquor license. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, like I said before, this portion, I feel, is largely administrative to what we did last year. Not the early vote this year, but last year's vote. So if, I'd like to get this done so we can move on to the further consideration of the issue later in the agenda. We've been on this for over an hour, I think, right now.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make one more comment. I do totally understand and sympathize with the neighbors out there, and knowing that I've heard them, testify that they bought out there, the developer had them sign in some kind of an agreement of understanding that these certain things wouldn't be allowed, pole buildings and such. And unfortunately, I hear that a lot, because that is kind of what people are told when they are going out to purchase in a development, that these are the things that will not be allowed. The problem is they never follow through, like by developing that HOA or doing things that will solidify that. So they kind of get into something that they think is going to be protected and keep their peace and harmony, and that usually is not the case. So I do sympathize with that, because I see it more and more. I don't know how we address that issue. We can't do it here. I think it's more of a state issue as to how developers are representing and not putting steps in to follow through to uphold what it is that they have people sign. But that's just my comment on that, from the comments from the public.
Well, I struggle with this immensely, but to me, it's always been about the enforcement issue. And if this grants the county the ability to enforce, I think that if they're going to be able to operate anyway and have a license and we can't enforce, or they have a license and we grant them and then we can enforce, I think that that's what we have to look at mainly for this. And I agree with Greg. We have to move on from this. We've been talking about this for an hour. So it's my prerogative to call a roll call vote on this.
I don't know if it's chair's prerogative. Is there a reason you just want to do a voice vote versus a roll call?
Well, if anybody wants to add any addition to their vote.
Addition?
Or a comment? Or if they vote no?
So, I mean...
do you have to give a reason?
You do not have to give a reason.
Okay.
You can just call for a vote.
All right. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Liquor license is approved.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Whew. Open forum.
And just a reminder, we do, commissioners, have a hard stop at noon, right, Keisha?
I would say probably around 12:15, 12:30.
For the-
Tammy, I believe it starts at 12:30.
So we have the employee recognition event at 12:30, so just a reminder about a hard stop there.
Are we going to continue the meeting then after that? Because there's a lot of items on this agenda that I do not want to leave set.
I understand it's board's prerogative. We didn't, schedule a continuation of the meeting, but you can address that at the time.
Okay.
Moving on to open forum. Keisha, is there anyone to speak?
There is nobody signed up, Board Chair.
Consent agenda. Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a couple notes on consent agenda. With the board's permission, I would like to remove item 12. It is not ready for board consideration. It will be rescheduled at a later date. Also, a note for the board, item 6.3. I just want to note the nobody wins the Eagle Eyes Award because nobody caught that item 6.3. Erroneously noted Becker Township, where it should have said Big Lake Township. And so I know there's a couple people who usually read the packet real close, but we got you this time. So we consider those Scrivener's errors. I just want to note for the board, item 6.3 is Big Lake Township. So we'll, when you take a motion, just notice that those are in there. And also, I understand Commissioner Felber has requested items 17, 18, and 11 be removed for separate consideration.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item number 12, and then separately removing item number 11, 17, and 18 for separate consideration.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski, second by Commissioner Felber. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Take these in order. Number 11.
Okay. I'll start with that. The Personnel Board, seriously, I didn't think that was something should be done in the consent agenda. I do know, we didn't get anything in our packet that told us how the selections were made specifically, and I'm still not sure which Sean Johnson we're talking about as far as appointing him to the board.
Human Resources Director for Wright County, lives in Sherburne County.
That's what I was assuming. However, I didn't have anything in my packet.
I thought Tammy said that in her email back to you.
Yeah, the email, but I'm just saying what I had actually in my packet. But I just want to make sure that we have these kind of things on the record. So this is just something I thought that we should be doing on the record, not in our consent agenda. I don't oppose the people that are being put on it are obviously very, very well versed in this, but I just think these kind of things should come up for board consideration before they're created in the future. That's my entire point.
Okay.
So in that, having said that, I would motion that we approve it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Felber to approve number 11.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Danielowski. All those in favor?
Further discussion.
You want some further discussion?
Yeah, just real quick. I'm just not sure why something like this just isn't part of the regular agenda. I just don't necessarily. I think if we've got a personnel board or something come, it should be presented to the board. We should understand the people being appointed to it a little bit more. I don't feel like it's appropriate for a consent agenda.
Okay. Anybody else? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
So
moving on to number 17.
Let me get to my. So County Road 75 parking. The lease agreement between the DNR and the property owner on the landing down there has fallen through. This last week or so, I saw a posting. I went down there and I talked to the DNR crew. They literally were moving the boat landing from the middle of the large parking lot that they used to have to the north end of the parking lot. And then they were going to be putting in jersey barriers all the way down the parking lot to delineate between what the DNR owns and what the private property owner has. This doing something with parking on County Road 75 was in my mental agenda of things to bring up at some point during this month. When this came up, that kind of removed that. I was hoping to maybe get a workshop on it. In previous years, when it got really, really busy out there, the Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July, the big weekends, sometimes you'd end up with cars parked on both sides of the road all the way down the road. One of the residents I talked to, I spent about 9 hours out there this weekend talking to people, talking to law enforcement, and some of it just kind of standing around fishing and watching people come and go and seeing how this thing was going to work. They would end up with cars. One of the residents told me he counted 61 trailer combinations out there at one point last year. So that gets really, really busy. And what happens when it gets busy is on those areas of the curve just north of the landing itself, the vehicles can't get all the way off pretty much on the east side and sometimes even on the west side of the road. So like those areas I thought should be no parking just to avoid that happening when it gets really super busy. There are, and if you look at all the pictures, you can see that, I mean, I don't know if we want to, it's a busy day, so I don't think we want to go through those pictures one by one. But what I think we really need to do is have a much more measured approach to this. I would still like to get something out there right away, like in the corners, you know, to have postings on those, on that first curve north of the landing to make sure that area is not being overblown here during, because we're not going to really get much done out there before the fishing opener. The township had a meeting last night on parking in their neighborhoods because they were concerned that the parking's going to overflow into there. You know, I mean, we can still get a lot of vehicles on there. We own a lot of what's left of the boat landing out on the other side. I mean, our easement there is definitely wide enough to drive a vehicle all the way across that landing, all the way across even the southmost entrance, all the way across that landing to where the boat landing is actually at on the north end. Now, I think we need to do some gravel work out there. I don't know if let me know if I get off what I can talk about. I should just give you like some stress balls or something to whip at me at times. On the very north end, the ditches, and you can see the hole there where the big ruts are in the pictures. We need to fill that in with gravel because otherwise right now they can't even back straight into that landing, which is being a real problem. And that would give us at least from the former center driveway to the landing, some sort of an area for people to approach. What I was observing last weekend were people were stopping with their 20-plus foot pontoons dead on the road waiting to get into that. That is an absolute recipe for disaster. Somebody's going to come through there with a car or going to come scooting around the corner on a sport bike and going to go right into one of those trailers. So we should try to facilitate something like that. That would be another area that we should probably post no parking. Now, the private property owner has, and it's not in these pictures because it's just came up last couple of days, has placed a series of T-posts on either end near where the driveway's going in, the very south driveway and the center driveway, and put 3 T-posts together, put a line across them, and put no parking signs there. So they have done something, and now it gives a very good impression of where his property ends. I'm not sure that we want to have parking on the space from between the southmost driveway and that center driveway either, because if people start parking there, then once again, people can't get off the road to stage their boats for getting in. And I don't know how you're going to pull in there safely and then have to back out safely onto the road because you can't pull nose in. What was happening the first few days after the Jersey barriers went in is people would simply drive across the property and park with the front of their truck facing the roadway just the way they always have. But now that's not going to be a feasible thing. Yesterday there were vehicles parked blocking both sides of the access. You could barely get into the access at one point. So I mean, there's some work that we need to do out there, but it has to be a lot more considered. I mean, banning all parking from 235th to 238th is just an absolute slap in the face for the people that live there. I mean, this is the neighborhood lake. I mean, I don't know anybody who has a boat who lives out there who's not on that lake at least once during the year. I mean, everybody goes to that lake. It is our neighborhood lake. This negotiations thing that's going on, that's probably not going to be resolved real soon. So we need to take some action on our parts of what we own out there to facilitate this and to make sure that people can still have recreational opportunities as safe as we can make it.
So to paraphrase a bit, so what I'm hearing is that some action needs to be taken. It's just this is not nuanced enough. So I don't know how to make the motion, or I don't know what the proper etiquette is. But what I would recommend is somehow that we pull this, and I'd like, staff to work with Commissioner Felber on coming up with a more nuanced plan that we can consider in the future.
And it definitely needs to include our enforcement partners. I did spend a couple hours out there, several hours out there, talking with Deputy Petrosky, who basically does our water patrol.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is kind of his thing.
That's fine.
The good news is
Chair.
in the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Danielowski.
I also think that we need to have some conversations with the DNR. I don't think we've weighed in on our concerns with the hazards that they're creating by narrowing that down to, it's already was a challenging boat landing prior. Now with only 5 parking spaces, they're creating a huge hazard and a safety issue that maybe with some conversation, we can move them to do the right thing and purchase that area. Because my concern is when we start talking about filling in our ditches with gravel or doing some things of that nature, what does that do to where the water goes? So I think it's a big picture we're looking at, wanting to try to accomplish, but I think it's got to have that DNR component in it as well, because they should be stepping up and doing the right thing.
I think I would go a step further. If we start filling in ditches to create access points, we have a policy on access to county roads that we have to follow, and the DNR has to follow it. And then they're responsible for the gravel and creating that Greg is talking about. That also then removes the liability from the county. Because if we start going in there and doing that without the proper agreements, the DNR is responsible for the boat launch, not us. The other thing is the ditches, when they're good for temporary parking, and the good news is we haven't had enforcement issues in the past, at least what Cole's told me. I don't know, Greg, if he told you that. Most people try to at least get off the white lines. But if we start specifically designing our ditches for parking, we're going to have issues with integrity of the road we're going to have to look at. We're going to have to look with structure, with drainage. So I think the no parking, figuring out where it makes sense, is a good first reaction, and engaging the DNR if they're going to change the access point, coming up with an agreement where they assume their responsibility and liability.
So is the proper action to take a vote on this and approve or deny it?
No, you can just table it, and we'll work on a more fine-tuned wood. And again, we got this on because Greg wanted it, the conversation. If it's not ready, that's fine. The one thing I would note, because it didn't come up, is there was a turn lane, a right turn lane, and I use the word was. We thought that would be available in the short term for parking.
Yeah.
That would actually be off-road. That's nice. So we'll include that in the conversation as well.
Yeah, people are still using that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be definitely, people are going to be driving in that because they come in that end. That's where I'm super concerned that we do something to keep that. I don't want people pulling in there and trying to back out onto the road if they
Right.
find themselves blocked.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be such a great landing because you had this very well, everybody kind of understood the flow. You came on the south side, you exit on the north side, you dropped your boat off in the middle. It was really fantastic.
But this isn't the issue is not our creation.
No, it's not.
I just got to be real careful that we don't try to solve it, because we could end up with huge liability unnecessarily. So that would be my
Would we let the
concern.
DNR fill in?
I'll make a
Mr. Chairman.
Whoa. Commissioner Schumacher.
I would like to see if this process, when we start it, that there's a sunset on it, because would hope that the resolution between the landowner and the DNR would work itself out, and then we could go back to the way it was prior to. That's all my question would be, is if in all considerations that there'd be a sunset clause on what we come up with, so that there could be a resolution where we're not involved and it could go back.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Holtz.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item and to direct staff to work with Commissioner Felber to revise the proposal, taking into account the comments of the board.
We have a motion to table.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schumacher. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Just to be clear, did that include in the motion, the comment from Commissioner Danielowski to also include, and Greg, Commissioner Felber, he said law enforcement partner, she said DNR. Is that part of the motion?
I made a motion to include the comments of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, well, that takes care of that.
Number 18.
So, the speed study, County State Aid Highway in 23. Once again, I find myself, which I don't really enjoy, being in the middle of a slight dispute between the city of Becker and the Becker Township. Obviously, once again, as we talked about in the previous discussion on County Road 23, the city of Becker is largely on one side, with the exception of the short distance across the front of their park. The township is on the other side. The township does not endorse the speed study. They are concerned. One of the primary requirements of speed studies, as I understand them, as they understand them, as I have had reiterated in email conversations with Ken Hansen, District 3 engineer from the state this very week, is that 85th percentile of measured speed is a primary component in determining a speed study. I do not believe that you're going to find the 85th percentile of speed a reduction on County Road 45, or excuse me, on County Road 23 at 45 miles an hour. When I drive that road at 45 miles an hour when there's traffic, I get tailgated. I think it's probably going to be higher. So I understand that why the township doesn't want it. In my conversation with Ken Hansen, he did also mention that, and I'm going to quote here because it's the only reasonable way to do it. I would ask you, the council, council, to extend the limits of the speed study on County Road 23 from US 10 to the Sherburne/Benton County line. These limits would correspond with previous speed authorization from 8/27/2002. If speeds do change as a result of the new study that has different authorization limits, enforcement will need to reference two different authorizations, which gets complicated. So I'm not in favor of doing this at this time. I think that this also needs to be, this area of the speed study, based on the recommendation of the state, needs to be expanded. This is going to include a lot more of Becker Township, and it should not move ahead without approval from Becker Township. I do not like being in the middle of this stuff. It is not effective at all.
So as the board knows, we're just the pass-through for these requests. We really don't have a dog in the fight, but the state requires, the county board to.
We do have a dog in the fight. We absolutely have a dog in the fight because the people who live there care about these issues.
This is a request from the city, and it has to go through the county to go to to MnDOT, just like a request from a township does for a speed study.
Andrew Witter, please.
Mr. Chair, County Board members, so understanding the comments made by Ken Hansen in regards to expanding the limits of the speed study, we would not be necessarily in favor of that either. The request came from Edgewood to 103rd, and that's the request that we would like to submit. From those two termini points, it is 55 miles an hour currently. Just slightly north of Edgewood, it does drop down to 45 miles an hour as you get south of Edgewood in preparation for that reduced speed, but our recommendation would be leaving it as the area from Edgewood to 103rd. Now, that being said, with the concerns that are being expressed and the understanding that we do have a road project coming up in the future, it might behoove us to hold off and wait until after that project is completed, have some conversations with both the city and the township, and then take a look at potentially looking at what that speed study and the limits of that speed study want to be after the road is reconstructed.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schumacher.
If I read between the lines, the center lane, if you lower the speed limit to 45, I think, doesn't the center lane, where it's called, frankly, suicide lane between the center, can't that be extended to the end? Is that the objection or the?
County Chair Commissioner Schumacher, I'd have to go back and take a look at that. I can't remember if it's 45 and below or below 45. How exactly that's stated in the design manuals. So it may need to be dropped down to 40 in order for that to work. So, but we can figure that out.
Mr. Chairman, that wasn't it was just kind of like I was trying to figure out, read between the lines between what the city was working on and what the township was against, is because if they extend that process back out where they have the lane in the center where you can turn, either way, you can't do it at 55, but you surely could potentially do it at 45 or 40. And so I'm just trying to read between the conversation that I wasn't in.
And Mr. Chair, they call it a continuous turn lane.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, but Mr. Chair, just for clarification though, Andrew, so the county has no authority to lower the speed limit. That is done by a speed study by the state.
Correct.
The input that the county can have is how they design the road. So what features are in the road, things like roundabouts, things like continuous turn lanes, those sort of things drive an output, but ultimately at the state that determines the speed limit of any given road, correct?
You are correct, yes.
So so how we can influence the speed limit as a county is what features we put into that road. We can't arbitrarily lower the speed limit.
Right.
Right. But what we can do is we can design the road with certain features such that it would drive most likely a lower speed limit if that's what the intended outcome is. Second question. So if a entity, so in this particular case, because we have a number of roads that border two different municipalities or two different townships or whatever, are we obligated if one entity, because their border is the middle of the road, right? Are we obligated if one entity requests a speed study and another one doesn't, are we obligated to either pass it through or not pass it through if one entity is for and one entity is against, or is it purely our discretion?
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure we've ever faced this before. It seems to be a local issue that's popping up on several fronts, but typically, at least historically, it's a courtesy. I'm thinking about like when Clear Lake Township, put one in and Palmer Township put one in. It's a request that comes to us and then we forward it to the state. I don't know if Andrew, you find one where one jurisdiction opposes and one doesn't. We weren't even aware that they opposed it, so.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, County Board members, I'm not aware of any with the split roadway that we've had before. I will say based on my past experience, it is purely the discretion of the County Board. Resolution is not required from the municipality. As a matter of practice, we've done that, especially in areas where the speed limit is less than 55, because in that request, there is the possibility, if they're interested in lowering the speed, in that request, there's a possibility that it could go up. In this situation, the speed's already set at 55 miles an hour between Edgewood and 103rd.
And I guess to Commissioner Felber's point, even though I am not, that's not my jurisdiction, right? That's not my area. I'm Elk River. But I am getting tired of playing ping pong between the township and the city. And so, not that I'm making a motion yet, but because of the input from the engineer of the state, because of what Andrew just said, I would be leaning toward not moving this forward, and also sending it back to the township and the city and say, guys, stop putting us in the middle. You guys need to start working this out.
Yeah, I think if you guys just want to table it today, Andrew then can recommend that we hold off on it until after we're through the design work, so.
I'll move the table.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Here we go. Good deal. That's all right. What's that? Announcements, Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I'll try to be brief given the time. Just a calendar call at the end, so if you want to make sure if you take notes on that, you do. Couple good news items, I guess, first of all. I think Lorraine left, but wanted you to be aware that the county received for the 31st year in a row the Certificate of Achievement for Financial Reporting, otherwise known as our CAFR, so Comprehensive Annual Financial Reporting, or the audit in essence. This comes from the Government Finance Officers of America. It's a very prestigious award. It's indicative of the fact that we have very transparent and accurate audits and reporting. It's kudos to Lorraine and her staff that we continue to receive that. Just by note, about 20% of local governments, so that's cities and counties, receive this award. So that immediately puts us in kind of that best of class as well. So congratulations to her and her staff. Second of all, just a note that Xcel Energy is going to be introducing sheep to their solar fields. So if you see sheep out there, don't think you're falling asleep. Right, but in fact, they will be using them for grazing, just like we used goats for the Grahams Park. They will be putting sheep out there.
They've
So
got the clearance for that. I didn't think they had the clearance for,
that's what Michelle says. So yeah, I'll send you the email. You guys could look at it. But
that's fantastic.
I just didn't want you to be, so we talked about growing marijuana under them, but that didn't work out. So we'll grow sheep. They'll eat marijuana? Yeah, that's good.
Happy goats.
Hopefully the sheep and the bees will get along, because we also want neonicotinoids, of course.
Okay.
Okay, and then some calendar call. Just again, I promised you just two things that aren't on your agenda. One is a reminder, NACO is July 11th through the 14th in Philadelphia. We need to know if you're planning on attending so that we can finalize arrangements. So as soon as you have firm yes or firm no, please let Keisha know right away. Second of all, just a reminder that AMC District 5 meeting is June 9th up in Morrison County, Little Falls. If you are attending, again, please let us know. That is a morning event. It goes from 8 till noon. Lunch is from noon to 1. So just be aware of that.
Do we know when the AMC meeting is going to be?
The District 5 meeting?
No, the main.
The main event? I
In
don't think
the
they have
fall?
another major event till
That's in the
December.
fall.
One's up in Alexandria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in the fall?
Which one?
Okay.
One that's in Alexandria.
Oh, yeah, I don't have the fall
Candyman.
policy, but I'll look for it, and then I'll also get you the December dates.
Okay.
Okay, now for the bad news, legislative updates. Let's start federal, because that's actually pretty good. We do have a member of the Sheriff's Office who will be out working on our legislative ask for some support for jail renovations, and so our Chief Deputy is out there. Also a note that we had a very good conversation with Congressman Emmer's staff, who also, by the way, will be out here on the 28th of May, assuming schedules allow, that it looks like that potential for what's called a CDS, congressionally directed spending, is looking fairly good for the jail ask this year. That probably means we'll not see multiple congressionally directed spending requests approved for the road project or for the parks project. But it's always nice to have one get to the finish line. So we're watching that very closely. At the state level, yeah, not so good. So a couple things I want to note. On the positive, community corrections, language is included that would balance or average over 3 years the formula, which makes it less volatile. What that means is instead of a $750,000 hit next year to the community corrections budget, it'll probably be more like $400,000 or $500,000. So it's still a hit, and it still will be impacted over multiple years, but it does lessen the initial blow at least. Not so successful in other areas, as you know, if you've been reading the AMC things. So for us personally, in the bonding side, we do have language in there for design work on 10 and 11, which is our next major road project, but we're not hearing much about any local projects in the bonding bill. So it could be just how it's being pared down that there won't be any local support. And of course, the thing that we're watching very, very closely is the budgets. And again, just the mantra is the House budget is worse than the governor's proposal, and the Senate budget is slightly better, but we're still looking at that very, very huge cost shift. What I need to know from you today is whether you would like us to pen a letter. Some of your counterpart counties have done it, AMC has done it. We haven't taken that position, but we can, and so I could get one written and submitted here before end of session. That would basically, what the letters, the tone and tenor is, look what the state's doing to us. As you think about that, I'll finish my other update, which is just a note that we had reported that we were in One bill for Lassard Sam's funding for our park. I did want to note after further investigation, that again is part of that tussle at the state level. The committee itself that makes the recommendation to the legislature did not include the Sherburne County Park, partly because we got some funding last year. So again, it's a queuing issue. They gave us funding, if you remember, to buy the Morehouse property and finish the park in terms of area. It was the chair who was trying to make a point that he thinks they should not just rely upon committee recommendations. And the chair just grabbed some projects willy-nilly and put them in the bill. There's not an indication that the chair's opinion is going to carry the weight. So while we are a little excited and surprised to see us on the list, I think it's more realistic that at the end of the day, we will not be included in state parks funding this year. So not a lot of good news.
On what you had mentioned about sending a letter down, I would appreciate if we as a board would authorize that, because I think we need to advocate for or against this shift, because it is going to affect our property taxpayers. And we need to do everything in our power to try to push back, in my opinion.
And I think it would be totally appropriate if the board, if you want us to, would be to direct the chair to sign it. I'll draft it. It would be a letter to the leaders of the legislature, but also I would suggest doing it as a letter to the editor.
I would actually like for us to be able to all sign it. The challenge is, I think it carries more weight. Not that your signature's not important, right?
Completely understand.
But I think it carries more weight. However, and I realize writing letters by committee is the least favorite thing that anybody wants to do, because we're all going to have a little bit different opinion on this. I will just say, from my personal opinion on this, is that we should not mince words on this letter. It should be very, typically, we try to be very middle of the road as a county, referring to the legislature or the state. I think we need to be very direct and not mince words, and be very clear what the significant problems are with this.
It's so important, Mr. Chairman, it's so important. You pick the time and date. I'll be here to sign the letter once it's completed.
Yep.
So do we need that in a form of a motion, or just?
Yeah,
direct?
just a couple of things. I mean, I'll draft. I will circulate for comment. However, unless we want to wait 2 weeks, which I would not recommend, then comment only, because if I do that, I think it would be a serial decision, and I would rather not have that be a criticism. So I'll draft, get comments from you, and then finalize it, and then collect your signatures.
Okay.
All right?
And we could do signatures electronic. We don't
Yeah.
have to show up.
I think you have
You
all
can,
the-
but from a decision-making point, you're making the decision today, I will just execute.
Yeah.
Okay?
So do you need a motion on that then?
That would be helpful, yeah.
Okay, I will make a motion then to direct county administrator to draft a strongly worded letter of opposition to any shifting of costs onto the counties, with all of our signatures to follow.
And I'll second.
And I'd suggest also an editorial letter to the editor. Would that include with a letter and a letter to the editor?
I will add that we would also put that into the letter to the editor.
And the
I would
seconder's
like
okay with
to
that?
See us on our Facebook page as well.
Yeah, second's fine.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Done, Bruce?
Yep.
You're done.
All right.
All right.
Hey,
Oh, we're on to the regular agenda.
just a quick suggestion. Can we take, if we run into the timing issue, can we take a recess for the employee recognition so that we can come back and continue our work?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to make sure staff's available because nobody had scheduled for that, but
Okay.
we'll work with the board, obviously, so.
All right. Number one on the regular agenda, welcome Mr. Drew Nelson, Sherburne County IT Director.
Now, before Drew speaks, I just want to know, Drew, this is not a regular board meeting, what you saw. Usually they're really good. So
Well, this was good, but it's going to be long.
Yeah, don't let them lie to you. This is exactly how it always goes.
This is what you got yourself into.
So I'm going to have Drew introduce himself, but Drew is our new IT director. We stole him from the city of St. Paul, and we're super excited. He's actually been on board now a little bit of time, but this is his first chance to be in front of all of you. So Drew, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm not sure if you follow the news from St. Paul, but this is a tame board meeting in comparison to where I come from. Oh, thank you. No. Administrator Messel recommended I speak for 5 to 7 minutes, but given the circumstances, I'll keep it to about 25 seconds here. I'm very excited to continue my 20-plus years of service in service to the residents of Sherburne County. I started about 20 years ago when I enlisted in what is inarguably our nation's greatest branch of the military, the United States Navy. And
It's not really a question.
It's on the record now, Commissioner. And continues through to today. I've had a chance to stop in state, municipal government, as well as worked in a non-commissioned capacity in law enforcement and in private sector. And I'm honored to be here to help serve and support the residents as well as the great staff here at the county government. Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. I'll just say I was on the selection committee for Drew, and we had 4 great candidates, and Drew obviously rose to the top in that. I mean, I think you'll be great for the county and the IT department. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Probably was that Navy background.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah, and as
he was right.
yeah, no, and as Drew said, we'll have. I mean, for better or for worse, he gets to start with some budget stuff, but we'll probably do a department update too on IT since you haven't kind of touched base with that department for a while. So, but welcome, Drew. We really look forward to great things.
All right, number 2, consider approval of reappointment of county engineer. Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So under Minnesota statute, the county engineer is an appointed position. In our particular case, the engineer also serves as the department head for the Public Works Department and the Parks Department. The reappointment occurs every 4 years. And so by statute, Andrew's reappointment is up for your consideration today. I will share with you as the person tasked by you to do day-to-day supervision. I highly recommend Andrew for reappointment. His track scores are exemplary. Personnel management is very strong. Fiscal management, you've seen how well it's done. And he approaches everything, I think, with a very objective and fact and based approach, which is very helpful, especially when dealing with roads and bridges. With that, we can stand for any questions you have on the reappointment of the county engineer.
Mr. Chair, I would make an appointment to approve the reappointment of County Engineer Andrew Witter to a 4-year term effective May 2025 through May 2029 pursuant to the Minnesota Statute 163.07 subsection 2.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any further discussion?
I personally struggled with this a little bit because of the conflicts I've had. However, that's really more of a personal thing, so I'm not going to oppose it.
Anyone else?
Nope. I think that Andrew Witter has done an awesome job representing us as our county engineer over the years since he came to us from Anoka County, and I appreciate everything that he has done to move us forward in our county road needs and also how he guides us in getting our grants and our other opportunities to help offset the costs of our roads. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say all my experiences with Andrew have been quite positive. So I appreciate the work that you do, and I think there's a lot that goes into the engineering designs. Sometimes those designs can be controversial, but a lot of that is outside of the hands of the engineers. It's driven by outside factors, and even though some of those issues become controversial, like I said, it's sometimes outside the hands of the engineers. Speaking as a former engineer, so I appreciate the work that you do.
I concur with everyone else in regards to that and what Andrew said. Yeah, appreciate everything you do.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm coming from a jurisdiction that was shared, saddled both counties, his recommendations they came highly sought and well listened to from both sides of a county, our county that we're in and the other side of the county and the jurisdiction I served in. So I thank you for the time and the resource, or, to be able to ask a question, whether it was inside the jurisdiction or outside, but still within the same jurisdiction of the city that I served last time. So thank you for that. And less trails and more roads.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, keep going.
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, moving on to number 3, consider application for interim use permit for occasional special event. Mark Schneider.
And just, again, quick reminder for the board, since we're doing this, liquor license is done now, so it's in the rearview mirror. These were tabled so we could clean that up. So they're now back in front of you. I do want to note a couple things before Mark jumps in with the details. Number one is, under the Minnesota statute, we are under the extended 60-day rule. We do have to have a decision today on both of the next 2 items. Otherwise, a non-decision is approval under state law. So if you don't make a decision, it is automatically approved under state law. If you make a decision for denial, which is the recommendation from this is on this particular item, the decision for denial, the findings of fact for denial are in your RBA. If you choose to consider approving the interim use permit, also in your packet are the conditions for approval as considered by the Planning Commission, because the staff's original recommendation was for approval. So should you get to that level today, just know that we will have to work through that process so that you make a decision today, because we have to deliver tomorrow the written findings of fact for approval or denial. The deadline is the 9th, right?
Correct.
So we're literally, this is your time to make the decision. So we took the pause to clean up the liquor license. What's in front of you is a recommendation for denial of the interim use permit from the Planning Commission. Behind that originally was a recommendation for approval that was brought to the Planning Commission by staff. With that, I'll let Mark fill in the other details.
Mark?
Okay. Thank you, Bruce, for the update on where we're currently at. So as Bruce stated, this was tabled at the March meeting. This recommendation did come from the Planning Advisory Commission to recommend denial for an interim use permit for an occasional special event for Carol Zimmerman at the Wine Liquor Bar. The Planning Commission did provide their findings, and I'm here to respond to any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, if I could go first. If I go back to what the administrator said, so if we don't make a decision, it will just automatically be approved. With what conditions would it be automatically approved if this board doesn't make a decision?
None.
Just approved.
Just approved.
So
just, for those of us who are old, history lesson.
Yep.
Minnesota is currently what's considered a property rights state. When they adopted the 60-day rule, the statute's very clear that if somebody requests a land use decision and the RGU, responsible government unit, does not act, it gets approved as requested.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
Could, just for the record, can we have someone articulate what the reasons were for recommendation of denial?
Mark, can you read those for the record?
Yep.
And Keisha, do you want to update the screen? I think we're off on one.
So if we keep scrolling down, Keisha, we'll get to the Planning Commission's findings. So that number 1, that the interim use permit will not be injurious to the enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. The board said no, the proposed use is not anticipated to diminish and impair property values in the immediate area. There will be no more than 2 events per year. The applicant's proposed operation and the conditions of the interim use permit should mitigate the potential impact on neighboring properties. Finding number 2, that the establishment of the interim use permit will not impede the normal and orderly development of improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. The board said no, this use will impede normal development of the property and neighboring properties. Neighboring properties to northwest, east have been developed for single-family housing. Finding number 3, that adequate measures have been Adequate utility, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or being provided. The Planning Commission said yes, adequate utilities, parking, and other necessary facilities are being provided for the proposed use. And number 4, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking, loading space to serve the proposed use. The Planning Commission said yes, the applicant has demonstrated they have enough parking to accommodate the proposed number of people using the property. And lastly, number 5, adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent to control offensive odors, fumes, dust, and noise and vibration, so none of these will constitute a nuisance, and control lighted signs in a manner that will not disturb neighboring properties. And the board said no. This IUP limits the occasional special events to no more than 2 per year, and the conditions of approval, adequate measures will be taken to mitigate noise and dust and vibration.
So, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Felber.
This, what we're looking at, is an expansion of what we did last year. This allows for bigger, more involved activities on this property. And I'll just say straight out, I don't, that's definitely getting beyond what you need to do on 5 acres. 70-plus people, food trucks, or various vendors, that kind of stuff, that really, I mean, for all the people that testified on this earlier, I'm super familiar with 5-acre neighborhoods. My 5-acre neighborhood is very wooded. I happen to live on the end where we do have some land and we have a lot of other things going on. And as a general rule, I'm very supportive of people trying to make a living off of their property in these neighborhoods. But this expansion is like some other stuff that's come before us where it's really getting too big for the neighborhood, in my opinion. So having said that, I will motion to deny.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Felber, a second by Commissioner Danielowski. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to say that I did watch the February Planning Commission meeting. I'm sorry. And they worked, it was a long meeting. They had a lot of conversation. They had a lot of testimony. And they worked through, I think they had, 2 to 3 motions before they arrived. And it was mainly because they were looking to deny based on similar comments by what Commissioner Felber said. And that's why I would support denying this IUP for the 2 special events.
Just a quick note.
Administrator Messel.
Thank you. Can I ask that the maker and the seconder consider clarification for the motion? So it's motion to deny based upon the findings of facts presented to the county board.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, I'll accept that.
And is the seconder okay with that?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Okay. So you have to adopt the reasons for denial as well, hence that's why I'm suggesting you include it. Because theoretically, you could adopt your own findings of fact. It sounds like you're adopting the ones that were presented.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I read through the entire packet several times.
Except for item 6.3, you missed that one, so.
It's not house.
And Commissioner Felber, would you also be including within that what you've articulated today about the size of the property and the specified activities as not being adequate to cover that?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other discussion?
And I'm good with that change as well.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Felber and a second by Commissioner Danielowski. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Could you say it louder?
Aye.
All right.
Number 4, consider application for conditional use permit amendment as modified by the Planning Advisory Commission.
And again, this is item 3 of 3. Same recommendation to the board that an action be taken today. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was to approve the proposed amendments for the reasons identified, and then that was brought to the board for consideration for approval as well. The initial underlying staff recommendation was also to recommend approval of the amendments, and I'll have Mark go through those now with you.
Okay. So on February 20th, the Planning Advisory Commission recommended approval of the request to conditional use permit amendment as modified with the following 19 conditions and findings of fact. The board did go back and forth on this quite a bit. Yes, there were 2 motions made on this. One failed, one did pass. And the applicant was looking to increase capacity, offer prepackaged food, and have live music as an option. The Planning Commission did modify the conditions to increase the number of people, condition number 6, from 40 to 60. They removed the condition about no amplified music. They said live music is allowed 5 p.m., but no amplified music is permitted as a part of their farm-related business. And those were the conditions recommended by the Planning Advisory Commission.
One comment on amplified music, it's like in the packet they talked about, keyboards, guitar. I don't see anybody hauling a piano out there. They probably don't have enough roadies for that activity and a piano tuner, which is required when you move a piano. So, I mean, to say no amplified music, I think could cause an issue in the future, because if you have regular keyboards out there, you have to have an amp. Now, there's a big difference between a 20-watt Roland and a 700-watt Roland, right? I mean, there's a big difference in that. So, I mean, sticking within the sound requirements that are already in there, I think that if there's any possible way to add, low volume amplified music would make sense. Because I mean, I can sing loud enough, you don't want me to, but I can sing loud enough for you to hear me in this room. Some people don't really have that kind of voice.
You have a definition of low volume that is acceptable?
Well, we had in the packet, and I know we have, there was some decibel sound stuff in the packet, and I think that definitely covers what we're talking about. I didn't memorize it. Like I say, I read it. I know it's there. I was struggling to find it here as we were doing it. So I think we have that covered already in terms of what the volume would be permissible. It's just saying zero amplification doesn't actually make sense. It puts an unreasonable, or not unreasonable, but sort of an ineffective restriction on what else we're doing here.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danilowski.
part of my concern about that would be somewhat, who's going to monitor it? Who's going to be responsible for making sure it doesn't go over that minimum load decibel? I think that adds a lot of extra burden to that, as versus just saying no amplified music. So that would be my concern, and I think that there was quite a bit of discussion as well from Planning Commission on that. And there was, testimony from, neighbors and stuff. It kind of went both ways. There was, support, there was opposition, and I would just think to avoid any further issues with the neighborhood, no amplification, I think, is still doable for the business and also protects the neighborhood.
Like I say, we have the decibel things in there. Once again, I'm also kind of pretty familiar with sound amplification. I have everything for performance in my garage from 25 watts per channel up to 575 watts per channel, which I can't run with my speakers in a small bar. You can't talk. So, they're not going to be able to do what they're talking about doing with zero amplification. So, I mean, yes, it's going to be a reactive enforcement. If somebody calls it in and says, it sounds more like Pantera than Pablo Cruz over there, we're going to have to come in and do something like that. And it does make it difficult, but I mean, it wouldn't be a whole lot more than probably a deputy stopping by and say, hey, crank it down. And if it happens a lot, then we're going to have to review that later.
Yep. They've already been operating for a year under no amplification, and it seems to have worked.
Well, in the packet, people were talking about there was amplified music as one of the problems that they've heard. So that is one of the many things in the many letters that were sent to us, is that there was some amplification, because people just don't really perform without at least a small amp, or, if I don't own a acoustic guitar, I'm going to have a small amp for my guitar, right? I mean, and, so I mean, it's really no different. You got outside speakers for your house. I have outside speakers for my house, and my neighbors usually can't hear what I'm playing, unless it's Christmas time when I play the music very loud, or at Halloween. I mean, I got 100 watts per channel running out the side of my house. So it can be the whole neighborhood hears it, or I just hear it. It's just a matter of where you turn it up at.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
First of all, I appreciate what you're saying and your expertise on amplified music. I would also like to remind you that you can't hear, so.
Wait, got a point.
That would be part of them bigger speakers, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that too.
But I do struggle with expanding this a little bit. I mean, we didn't have a lot of comment on the original CUP, right? We have had a lot of comment on this recently, and I'm worried about exacerbating the problem. I struggle on both sides because I understand the desire to grow a business on your own property. At some point, though, in a neighborhood of this size, it does become an issue. And it becomes an issue on, we often talk about this, my property rights stop at the end of your nose, right? And this is one of the areas where I really struggle, because I have seen different parts of the country where you are allowed to have bars in the neighborhood, and it does become an issue. I think the applicants have tried to be mindful of the neighborhood, and I do appreciate that. But at some point, you end up with scope creep, and it ends up becoming a little too much. So I struggle with the expansion. I think continuing what you're doing, I appreciate that, but I struggle with when is too much for a neighborhood of that size. Those are my comments.
And a property of 5 acres that is heavily wooded and has wetlands on it.
Mark, isn't the reason for this amendment brought forth basically a lot because of the notice of violation?
Yeah, so they received a notice of violation. The county received a complaint about Boulder Creek Wine Bar operating out of compliance with their conditional use permit. In August of 2024, upon looking at the complaint, doing a simple amount of research, yes, we did issue a notice of violation. The applicant, as they were kind of approaching the end of the season, had the opportunity to continue operating in compliance with the terms of the permit as specified in the notice of violation. They also had the opportunity to, amend the permit. The applicant chose to amend the permit to try to accommodate these uses that they did do out of compliance with BP.
Okay.
And then I think the next item wasn't that was amended or asked to be amended was the parking and the people?
It was a number of people, and so they improved some parking areas to have more parking space to accommodate up to 70 guests. The Planning Commission rejected 70 and went to 60.
So, aside from that addition, I would like to keep it, I'm not in favor of expanding. We need to keep it back to that original 40 people. And realistically, if you have new space for parking, you might want to consider putting in more grapes or something in that for the agricultural purpose. Really, it just gets to be too much. I mean, like I say, I got 29 years I've been living out in the township on a 5-acre property. My neighbors have been, had a lot of different interests. We had a lot of different interests. I get noise. Used to have a neighbor who worked a lot on hot rods. I could hear his vehicles every single weekend, but that's his prerogative. So I'm not opposed to this, just I don't want to create a business that's larger than is really satisfactory for that property.
Yeah. And Mr. Chair, and in combination with item number 7 in regards to expanding the parking, it was my understanding they expanded the parking before getting the authorization to go from more than 20 and moved it to 50, or hadn't expanded enough for 50, and I do agree with keeping the scope of the original UP with 20 parking spaces, and that way it remains that small, intimate setting that they are talking about wanting to do.
Brad, you look like you want to say something.
Many things, Mr. Chairman, many things. I will go back to the amplified music that I heard at Eagle Lake, going through all of the boats and all. I was there, it's not where I live, but those people experience that same kind of loud music from people just making hot laps around. I also participated in, not in that neighborhood when I went through, but, I have a Goldwing, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard the acoustics on a motorcycle, are pretty insane. And so you still go through with the same music and the same sound. You can't stop the neighbor kids from their four-wheelers. You put a four-wheeler with a JBL on you and you're blasting music going through. So you can pinch them down as tightly as you want, but you still have people that'll ride down the road on a Harley to go to their venue, or to the neighbor kids riding a Banshee at the end of the cul-de-sac in that development, with the loud pipes. So I get where we're trying to go, and I'm with you guys, but I also look at the reality of like the people who are coming. I love people who have convertibles, right? And they always have a great acoustical system that has a convertible car driving down the road, and they're going to come to their venue, and they're going to visit the neighbor kids because a young kid got a convertible. So I agree with you guys, and I'm going to agree with the motion that gets made, but boxing them in, yep.
Yeah, there again, I don't have control over the motorcycle that goes down the street with its music turned up. I don't have control over the people on the lake. Most people that do move to a lake, if you are kidding yourself that you're going to have peaceful enjoyment at all times,
you're kidding yourself.
You're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
But this we do have control over, so that's my reasoning.
So, just for clarification, if we vote to deny this application, then the original CUP as put together last year is what we're going to be operating under. Exactly. Without any modifications. And I don't know that we can actually modify that one here today for the amplification.
No.
It's just something that I mentioned that more as a way to bring it back if we deny this one, as a practical matter.
And Mr. Chairman, one more. If we hold off and do nothing, does it revert back?
No, then this is approved.
Then this is approved. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was on the same page on that. Right.
Mr. Chair, can you clarify my memory? Do we have a motion on the table?
I'm not sure we do.
No, we started chatting.
I didn't think we did,
Okay.
so.
We started chatting before the motion.
All right.
Don't have a motion noted.
I think.
Okay. Keisha, can you scroll down to where the motion? There we go. Yes, ups. Thank you. All right. I will make a motion then to deny the application for a conditional use permit amendment as modified by the Planning Advisory Commission for property address 15913 41st Street Southeast, Becker, PID 45-00021-2405, legal description, west 1-2 of southeast 1-4, section 21, township 35, range 28, with 5 acres in the agricultural district.
We have a motion.
I will second that.
Commissioner Felber seconds. Any further discussion?
You'll need to identify the findings of fact for why you're denying. Again, the two that were requested, you can adopt the reasons for denial for everything else, but specifically why you're denying the recommended approval of going from 40 to 60 and the live music.
All right. So we can modify the 40 to 60?
That is
Or-
the recommendation to approve. You need to identify for the record why you're recommending, why you're denying. So is it too big for the character of the neighborhood? Is it, what are your reasons for denial?
Reasons for denying would be too big for the neighborhood, getting too big for the neighborhood.
Okay.
Do I need anything more than that?
I think that that's an adequate reasoning. It was one of the normal conditions.
Yes.
Are there other reasons why you would deny expansion? Other than the size of the venue and the neighborhood? You don't need one, I'm just asking.
No,
so,
I don't.
Okay. And then with respect to live music, what is the reasons for denial?
For the peace and quiet of the neighborhood.
Okay.
And we did have, there was one more request. It was for prepackaged food. to
Oh,
be
and
available.
prepackaged food, what was the reasons for denying the prepackaged food?
There again, expansion of the business.
Beyond the original
scope,
intent and
Beyond the
scope?
original intent.
Okay. And is the seconder okay with those reasons for denial?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to be clear, does that also prohibit food trucks?
I think the board could, make that clarity, yes.
Okay, I would like to make the clarity that this would also prohibit food trucks. Are you good with that, Mr. Secretary?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to clarify, so this denial then reverts the CUP back to the original CUP that was approved last year.
Correct.
It's not a matter of reversion. The denial does not amend the original CUP.
So the CUP is still in effect, and the operator can operate under the original conditions
Correct.
as directed by this board.
Right.
Yeah,
Basically.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I struggle with this one a lot in regards to it. There's many things too. It's starting to get too big, but I also am a big proponent of people using their land for what they want. But again, I live in a neighborhood that's very similar to this, and I would struggle with that in my neighborhood. So I can see the opposition to that to begin with. But I don't think, Mark, making a motion to deny right now still leaves them the opportunity to amend this later, correct? If things go well, they do things that are proponent that the neighborhood likes, they can come forward again, can't they?
I believe there's a year delay, if I remember right, before they can come back for a
Same application.
Right. Yes, but they can come back and demonstrate a desire or additional information, additional letters of support, whatever. So, but I believe that there's a requirement of a year.
Yeah, because I would like to see the neighborhood, come together in harmony for something like this, not at each other for it. I mean, it would be better that they get together and adjust that it's there and it's going to be there, instead of going after each other in regards to it. I think that would be the more prudent thing to do, but that's my opinion.
The other piece that I would just like to throw out, and this is just a general philosophy because we've had different applications come up to us previously over the last couple of years as well. I very much struggle with modifying a CUP or an IUP based on violations, just to bring, so that it becomes within compliance. So that's just a general philosophy on my part.
It's like being rewarded for doing something wrong.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
All right. Consider approval of conditional use permit for a horse stable. Lynn?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is for the Addy Drone property. It's a conditional use permit, horse stable commercial. It's in Blue Hill Township on 10 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 10 conditions and the findings of fact.
I would move to approve this. They have the land, they have the setup, they're ready to go. Move to approval.
I'll make a second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Felber, a second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, Lynn, we're on to consider approval of interim use permit for a cannabis micro business.
And this is for Brandon Johnson and Rebecca Holm. This is our first cannabis approval. This is with endorsements for cultivation and manufacturing. This is in Livonia Township on 10 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 10 conditions and the findings of fact.
I would motion to approve this one also, and I do want to make one little comment that.
I'll second it, so you can make your comments.
Thank you.
Discussion. Now you can talk.
This little, this is exactly what I thought we were going to be seeing with a lot of the cannabis business. You're going to see it as a small cottage industry, very small areas because of the actual amount of income you can get out of a small space. And this exactly reiterates what a lot of we talked about during our discussions on cannabis business down the line. So they have everything they need. They're good to go.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I think we motion with the conditions, right? It's motion with,
Conditions and the findings of fact.
No conditions of finding of fact, yes.
that's my second, yep.
Your second.
To make sure
We
we
have
had
a
it
motion
all
and a
on there
second.
for Don.
Any more discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of amendment to the Sherburne County Comprehensive Plan Use Map, the Fuller Garden.
I think we do the Fuller Garden first.
Yeah, I think we have to do the garden
Oh,
first.
Scratched it out early. Consider approval of an interim use permit for Fuller Gardens, LLC.
It gets along.
And the owner on this is Gary and Kathleen Kiffmeyer Trust. This is a 1 megawatt solar farm. This is in Clear Lake Township on 80 acres in the Ag District and in the Orderly Annexation Zone 1 with the City of Clear Lake. Planning Commission recommended approval of the IUP with the 20 conditions and the findings of fact.
I would motion that we approve this with the conditions and findings of fact.
We have a motion by Commissioner Felber. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner second, Danielowski seconds. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say this is something that when I watch this one go through the Planning Commission, and I did not talk, even though I was there, I just, this particular one kind of represents, because this is being put into a trust, this represents a really good way for local landowners to preserve their generational investment, their generational wealth, and pass it on by putting at least a portion of their property into one of these things, which is, it's a really good way to use your property for your family in the future. I think it's a great idea.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Same sign. Now, consider amendment to the Sherburne County Comprehensive Plan Use Map.
And again, this is for Fuller Garden on the Kiffmeyer property in Clear Lake Township. Planning Commission recommended approval of the request for an amendment to the Sherburne County Comp Plan Land Use Map for private energy production for the installation of energy-producing solar farm as this use is compatible with those in the area.
I would also motion that we approve this with all the findings. It's getting to be a long day.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We're moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9, consider approval of designation of named highway County Road 43 from State Highway 10 to Elk River.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. You approved a policy a couple of months back allowing for residents and businesses and citizens to apply for the potential designation of a section of highway being named in honor of or memory of individuals. This is really the third tier The other two tiers that are already in process or in place are the Adopt a Highway, as well as the park bench or dedication memorials. We did receive an application from the family of First Lieutenant O.S. Anderson for consideration of naming or designating a section of County Road 43 from Trunk Highway 10 to Elk River in memory of First Lieutenant O.S. Anderson. We have deemed the applicant complete and sufficient to be recommended for approval to the county board, and so we stand to answer any questions they may have. Just a note, pursuant to policy, the county will construct through its sign shop a couple of appropriate signs. They will be mounted by the county. There's not a significant cost to that. Any other memorial designations are not allowed, such as flowers or hangings or plantings or anything of the like. There is a time limit on this pursuant to the policy as well, so that it is not in perpetuity. And should anything change, of course, it comes back to the board for reconsideration.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
thank you. I would enthusiastically make a motion to approve this application for the designation of a named highway, County Road 43 from Trunk Highway 10 to the Elk River in honor of First Lieutenant O.S. Anderson. And if someone would make a second, I'll have a comment.
I'll second.
Thank you.
You have a motion and a second.
All right, I would like to say I appreciate all of the work that went into making this, and I thank the board for approving this opportunity for people to be able to recognize people to honor on our highways. I was contacted probably about a year and a half or so ago from a resident, one of my constituents, Michael Anderson, and this is a relative of his that he wanted to see recognized. And as you could see in your packet, it included what it was that this person did in the service. And so I just wanted to thank everybody that helped make this happen, and also thank Mr. Anderson for his patience through the process.
And then, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schumacher.
Keisha, could you scroll the screen to the picture that's in the packet so everyone can
Yes,
see it?
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I concur. There's a photo there that,
Thank you for
Any
that.
further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick note on that, and no guarantees, but we will ask Mr. Unzi too if maybe we could, in the future, have a web page for this to show a little more on them. As you know, we already have one designated highway from many, many years ago, so we have to get some research because we want it to be balanced, to really recognize all. But if we get questions, at least we'll have a place for them to be referred to, so.
Mr. Chair, should we really throw him for a loop and put a QR code on the sign with that link to that information?
I'm going to defer on that because we have to have the website built before the sign, so, but
How do you like that answer?
It's a challenge.
I'm going to go back to earlier where I was trying to be, quasi risk manager and say, I don't know if I want people trying to get a QR code as they're driving by. So, but, at least we'll have the
That's a
information.
good out there.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
And number 10, consider appointment of Commission Land Transaction Committee members. Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. You guys adopted this last month. We just need to know which commissioner wants to serve on this. It probably will meet once a year, if at all, right, Dan? As needed, but you had suggested adding a standing commissioner as well as the commissioner for any land that might be considered for purchase or sale. So we just need to have a standing commissioner designated today.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Commissioner Felber to that position. If it can get past him, I'm probably okay with it.
Plus, it'll be him and then whosever district it is.
Correct.
If the land is within his district, it will be whose?
That's just him.
Just
So,
him.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the way the policy is written, it's more of the standing committee and then informing the commissioner whose district it is. Not that there's formal decision-making, but I'll trust he can inform himself then, so.
never know.
Well, I'll make a motion that the nominations are closed.
Oh.
And
I didn't think that was a nomination. I thought that was a motion.
That was a motion.
motion, do we have a second then?
A second.
Commissioner Schubacher seconds. Not going to give you the chance for denial. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ms. Elber's it. Commissioner correspondence, and in the essence of time, I think,
Make it brief.
very brief, 3 minutes, the same as open forum.
Holy
All
crap.
right, sounds good. I'll go fast. The only thing I have is I sent some correspondence to you earlier, or it must have been last week. So we got to get together. It's regarding the Mississippi Watershed District. There's some things we need to review, which it escapes me what it is we have to review at this point, but there's some things we've got to review. We just need to set up a time to talk them over.
And then you've got your meeting tonight with the park
Yeah, it's
committee.
at 5:30, is that right?
5:30, yep.
Yep.
I can go next.
Commissioner Danielowski.
Thank you. April 16th, I attended the Sherburne County Sub-Coalition meeting. Also that evening, attended the Sherburne County Association of Township meetings. That was a really good meeting. Haven Township was the sponsor for the meal and also gave us an overview of what Haven Township is and what they do. And Kari Watkins was there to do that. She did an excellent job. I learned a lot. I did want to also tell her that she should put into that really good presentation that at one time, Haven Township and all of Sherburne County used to be a part of Benton County. And that's some of the history for that our founding fathers were Benton County. We don't let them forget that. And also April 17th, attended the county EDA meeting. April 22nd, attended the actually I think it was Connexus Energy on the lithium battery training. That was really interesting. I know Greg was there and he was feverishly taking notes, so he can probably talk a lot more about this, but it was a very informative meeting. I think the one thing that I did find out was that these lithium batteries don't like to be made angry, and they don't like to be overcharged. And a lot of times when you're purchasing these batteries, please don't buy the cheaper battery, because normally that means that it won't have a management.
Battery management system.
Yeah, battery management system, which prevents it from getting overcharged and getting mad and doing things that you don't want it to be doing. And also give it its time to rest. So it was very informative. April 23rd, I attended Big Lake Township meeting. April 24th, had the Tri-County Solid Waste meeting. Also attended by Zoom later that day, NACO's event where they have done a series of the first 100 days and have highlighted the different things that have gone on in the first 100 days. April 25th, attended the Big Lake Substance Abuse Prevention meeting. April 28th, had the Options Board meeting. April 29th, attended the Central Minnesota Housing Summit that was basically sponsored by Central Care Health up in St. Cloud. Very, very informative, very good presentations that were made in regards to our housing needs. And one thing I came away with, manufactured housing is really come a long way since the days of old. And that was talked about a lot and showcased quite a bit. So those could be answers to some of the needs of our housing issues going forward. Also, April 30th, Xcel Energy had the Blattner Battery Information Meeting. That is what they're going to be putting up on their properties up in Becker. Also attended later that day Kathy's retirement party. And hi, Kathy. I'm sure you're probably not watching because you're so busy doing lots of fun stuff. And then also May 1st, the Central Minnesota Council on Aging meeting. And a lot of what's coming is just kind of trying to brace for what it is that the federal monies that might be reduced and some of the state funding impacts and stuff. So stay tuned for more on that.
You went over your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
I'll come
Okay.
under- I'll come underneath it. I started off with the City of Baldwin meeting. That was very good. Did the Livonia Township meeting. Yesterday, we did another Livonia Township special meeting regarding zoning, solar panels, cannabis, and a variety of other conversations with their attorney. Attended the Zimmerman City Council meeting, dealing with some frozen septic systems that froze in this last winter, and still addressing some of those concerns with constituents and doing, I've been out to their properties just to kind of talk about it and figure out a plan. And then cleanup day was so successful. There's extra free mattresses available at Livonia Town Hall. If anybody needs a free mattress, they've got them piled high, and they're free for pickup for anybody else. Just don't drop them off in a ditch on your way. And then I did attend the county attorney's recognition, and I wanted to say that Don did a fantastic job moderating that event, and so very good job for that. And yes, Kathy is not watching this. She is enjoying the retirement, and I'm under my 3 minutes to make up the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, a lot of long meetings, but I'll be quick. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, Military Awareness Month, Older Americans Month, American Stroke Awareness Month, and Arthritis Awareness Month, all of which have touched my family. This week is Natural Correction Officers Week, May 11th, 17th, National Police Week, Public Service Week. Earlier in the month, Great River Regional Library Workshop, they're having problems with Mintex. We've already talked about that. One of the big things that came up in our group discussion is how the library can be a safe space for kids. Even what was kind of ironic about that is Tyrus on the Gutfield show, if you're not familiar with him, giant dude, used to be a professional wrestler, mentioned how it was a refuge for him as a child. So these are one of the things we need to think about when we're looking at our libraries, that they can be a refuge for our children and a great place to disseminate information. Park Advisory Committee, we went over park ordinance changes. The Solid Waste Group, there was presentations from everybody who's burning waste in the state of Minnesota. Talked about a lot about how much more stuff would go in the landfills if we stopped doing that. It's enough to say that that's going to be a lot more than we want it to be. It's also important to note that methane is 23 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than CO2. So burning your trash is a great idea. I'm cutting this down a lot. There was also some presentation from the Minnesota Composting Council on that. Brown bag webinar on energy transition. It's talked a lot about how the cost of decarbonization is not really adequately put out by the current federal funding, and the number of people that are affected by decarbonization, which is removal of coal plants, coal industries, and other fossil fuel industries, is not being adequately compensated because of the inadequacies in the federal programming. Battery fire training, absolutely, we talked about that. One of the main things we need to think about that is that the batteries that we're getting as a part of our battery storage systems are going to be a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is not the type of battery that has a tendency to overrun its and start to burn. It's a much more stable battery, and with a battery management system, in your BESS, which is a battery energy storage system, which is like in a big container. Some of them, not the ones we're getting, but some of them actually have fire suppression in them. But you're going to have your batteries, your inverters, your heating, cooling system, ventilation systems, and that kind of stuff, and they're remotely monitored. So if there is a problem in it, when they do get a fire inside of those, which is extremely rare, much more rare than with a lithium-ion type system, it will not go into the next container. It will be contained in the same container. Let's see. Conexus staff said they're putting BESS systems at their substations instead of updating them because it provides a more reliable way of backing up the grid. I went to the County Road 93. Am I out?
You're out.
Dash, dang it.
3 minutes.
That only got me up to 4:15.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I went to the County Road 93 meeting where the township voted to take over their road. County Road 93. Towards Zero Death, talked about how primarily how crash analysis is developing, and it's getting more advanced, so we're getting better at being able to figure out exactly where our crashes are coming. Tri-County Solid Waste, there was an MPCA comment on boat wrap. We're going to miss that particular webinar today because we're going to be still working at 1 o'clock. I was supposed to go to that. Commissioner Lensmeyer retired. That's an important thing. Tipping fees are, and the separate long-range strategic planning committee for Tri-County, the tipping fee's likely to go up. Private partnership, reduced taxes and fees to start is going to be important for long-term. I watched the parts of the Pauley Jail seminar. That wasn't really all that interesting. The Blattner power thing, we already checked on that, already talked about that. The batteries will never be completely discharged. There'll always be AC and DC voltage in each unit, so it's important for first responders. And they're going to have training and information on that. And the two that they're going to put in is Sherco West, Sherco South, 300 megawatt, 20 acres each. And they'll probably start to build late next year. And then I already talked about the township, County Road 23 and County Road 75. I needed 3.5 minutes, that was all.
No, you needed 5.
5, okay.
I'm going to be real quick. We talked about the SCAP meeting on the 4/16. The adult protection team, you guys all know that I'm a big proponent of public health, but that was fascinating, what they do and the vulnerable adults and how they help out. Just incredible. I did the TRICAP Board of Directors meeting, the Planning and Zoning meeting, the Connexity battery storage that we talked about. Greg and Rand both talked about that. I hosted a town hall meeting at Palmer, which was well attended with Bruce. I think we did that very well. Hosted a town hall at Haven. That was well attended too. And we brought up the fact of the levy and the cost shifts and stuff of that. And I think there wasn't a lot of dissension. You know, they understood that it was not us that were raising the levy, you know, because we're adding fluff or anything of that nature. They understand that we run a really clean ship, I think, and that they, you know, the levy was not our fault, what's projected to be. We'll still work at it, but it's not like it was a big issue to a lot of people. XL Energy, I did their battery one. I think the biggest takeaway from that for the homeowners is the battery protection system that Rayanne mentioned. Cheaper batteries don't have that. If they're left in the chargers, that's where they will start on fire, because they're not shut down. They're overcharged, and they can become thermal runaways, and you don't put them out. You just let them go. You let them burn. You try and get them out of the building and let them go. Cleanup days at Haven, Palmer, and Clear Lake on Saturday. I did those, and I had multiple lunches and meet and greets with the department staff and heads. Thank you. That's all I had. We're moving on. Okay, we're actually okay.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes, so if you want to push right through into the workshop.
We can.
Or you can take a quick break and start it and come back. We didn't have any topic. I mean, we had a topic, but no background information or anything. So I would want to see if Lynn can come and join, but she can come immediately if you want to start now, or take 3 minutes and go.
Brad says 3 minutes, so I'm going to